Renewable energy firm IPV Flexgen will be hosting a public consultation at Andreas Parish Hall on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. to share updated proposals for the redevelopment of Andreas Airfield. This farmer-led project includes agricultural growing units, an anaerobic digester plant, ground-mounted solar PV and battery storage to provide the site with electricity and heat. But could this project develop into a sustainable energy scheme that most people could get behind? I'm joined in the studio by two people who can help us answer that question.
Hi, I'm Robert Murray. I'm the owner, along with the rest of my family, of Andreas Airfield.
Hi, I'm Ed Jessamine. I'm working with Robert and his family to help them develop their renewable energy project.
So, Robert, I know because you very kindly invited me. I have to say I paid my way, so there's no skullduggery going on here. You invited me on a tour with the farmers around some AD and anaerobic digester plants in Scotland. So I know a bit about this, but most people listening probably won't have a clue what this project is all about. So perhaps if we start with the basics, that would be good.
Well, I think we have to go back to square one, Phil, to be honest with you. Obviously, Andreas Airfield is previously developed land. We've got 2 miles of runways there to start with, which have absolutely no use for anything, even for flying now, because of the state of the runways. And I think if we go back in time, to my late father's time, the amount of people wanted to do this, that and the other in the way of projects, which in theory were pretty good. But unfortunately, what ended up happening all the time, when they dug further into it, there was a total lack of power. There was not enough energy on the site or getting it to the site to do what different projects wanted to do. I think the latest one, I was approached by a small data centre company to put, because obviously inherently with the airfield being quite private, from a secure point of view, it was perfect for them. But when they start looking, there is no power. We've obviously had good constructive conversations with Manx Utilities, and to be honest with you, at this moment in time, they're talking about maybe giving us 300 kilowatts of power, where in all fairness, we want to be talking in megawatts. Mm. So we're at that situation then, right, what can we do? Obviously, there's a debate and everything about renewable energy, and the likes of, and obviously solar energy, from my point of view, fits in really well, because obviously you can put those solar panels out and you can still the likes of grey sheep underneath them, so it's still very agriculturally biased. But the problem with that is when the sun don't shine, we get no power. So we have to have a blend of something else to do that. Now, obviously, from an agricultural point of view, I've seen them on UK farms as well. There's a process called anaerobic digestion. Now, anaerobic digestion is taking organic matter, putting it basically into a drum, mixing it round, and allow it to digest on itself with bugs.
And this is not waste you're talking about?
Well, that's what I was going to go on and say. There are 2 types of anaerobic digestion. You've got the big waste anaerobic digesters, which the likes of Thames Water, places like that, use to help treat sewage. I don't want to know about that, because at the end of the day, I live there. It's my home and everything we do. But there is a second type which relies on agriculture producing crops specifically for that digester, and that's exactly the type we went to see when you kindly came with us to Scotland, because at the end of the day, what it helps, it does what we want to do. We can grow certainly a lump of those crops on our farm to do that, so from a farming point of view it's brilliant, but equally we need more crops than I can grow. So we're in a situation where my neighbours can get involved as well, and so it's almost spreading the love a little bit.
And then one of the charges that you get back in relation to that is, well, surely farmers should be growing food, not stuff to put into an anaerobic digester.
It is, but we all know what the vagaries of agriculture are at the moment. Without getting into the politics of it at all, Phil, because I don't think this is what we're here to talk about. But yeah, we're importing such a massive amount of food, and I want to let the agricultural industry have a diversified option in their portfolio of what they do. And the beauty with this is, with most diversifications happen on farm, it means spending tremendous amounts of capital. Where this isn't. This is actually doing something with their existing capital. So it's just another crop for a different purpose, if that makes sense.
And I think the farms that we visited in Scotland demonstrated that they had a range of arable crops, some for energy, some grain crops, some vegetable crops, and because they were producing for the energy crops, it made it probably more cost effective to do some of the food stuff.
Oh, 100%. But I think what we've also got to make, those energy crops will be part of their rotation. So it's not like they're going to take the whole farm out of production of food. They're not. But what they're going to do in good agricultural practice is you rotate your crops. The other good thing that comes off the back of this, which helps a farmer as well, for every 100 tonnes you put into an AD plant, you will pull back off 90 tonnes of what they call digestate, which is basically all that stuff minus the methane. And what that is a highly productive agricultural organic fertilizer. It's high in nitrogen, potash and phosphate. So you get into a cycle then. So it makes us as an island people a little bit more independent. We're not having to import fertilizers. So from a purely agricultural point of view, it's great.
And the other big question, I suppose, that people will have is, we don't want this old smelly thing next to us.
100%, and that's why I've made the point that there are two types, and I think you can confirm when we actually went to a purely agricultural based digester, they don't smell. There is no smell. And yeah, as I've said
it's
before,
very much in the economic interest of the plant for it not to smell, because if it's smelling, that's probably the gas is leaking, and you're
100%,
losing
you're not getting, a good managed AD plant will run at sort of 95 plus efficiency. So when you start to smell things, it ain't doing its job properly. And frankly, that's the reason we've gone on this journey since the trip, to make sure our team, of which I'm only a small part of it, our team have found the right people to work with in actually designing and building and running that potential AD plant.
That was a good introduction to yourself, Ed. What is it that you do?
Well, my job has been to help Robert work out a way in which to generate power on site. I got involved when he was originally approached by a company that were looking to bring in 25 megawatts of power to the site, which they thought was pretty reasonable, but fundamentally that's more than 50% of the baseload power demand on the whole island. So it was a bit of a challenge, and the first thing we need to do were talks with MUA and try to work out what to do. So we've spent 5 years talking with MUA about how do we develop a complementary system, because we want the power for use on site. But obviously we would also like to be able to bring whatever incoming power we can. We're sort of describing the grid almost as an umbilical cord, but we've got an islanded solution. And for that, we need to have the AD, which gives us baseload power. So we're guaranteed all year round we're producing our 2 megawatts, which we'd hope to do from that. And we supplement that with solar power. The airfield's got pretty good irradiation, so sunshine hours. And by putting PV in, which is the cheapest form of renewable energy, we get a blend of energy cost, which allows us to develop a crop-first AD project.
And PV, for those uninitiated, photovoltaic?
Photovoltaics, yeah. So we're designing systems, ground-mounted solutions. So we're looking to effectively work in what we describe as agrivoltaics. So it's the optimization of land for both agriculture and energy production. Robert's mentioned in this particular project we're looking at sheep grazing around the site, which is very common practice, and the sheep really enjoy the protection they get from the elements working around the PV, and that helps us because it keeps the grass down. So we've been working with Robert to develop a system that gives him a base load. Our initial target is to sort of get to around about 3 megawatts of available power, and we're doing that through the AD, through the PV and through battery storage. And we're doing it in a way that allows us to bring power in from the grid. so that we can potentially expand our power demand if we need to, while we're potentially upgrading our renewables as well. So it's a complementary system to the network that is also has protection measures in there to ensure that we don't cause any instability to the grid.
And is this something that could potentially supply energy to the grid?
An islanded solution needs to be completely resilient and secure to work, and that means that we operate off-grid, but it also means that because of the way we're trying to set this up and the work we're doing with MU, we could support the grid if there was a catastrophic failure on the network, or if you suddenly had spikes, etc., of power demand to deal with. A battery solution at the site would help a lot. It operates as a modulator between supply and demand because it's an instant reaction. So yeah, I mean, we could support the grid, and in an ideal world, we'd be doing both, providing power on site and off site. Interesting enough, with the AD, one of the exciting opportunities is that AD produces heat as part of its byproduct. And what we are exploring is not only can we use that heat on site as a local heating system to help us with things like indoor growing, where we want to have a balanced temperature for the crops, but also we could run an external heating system. So it's a conversation again we're having at MUA. Could we push the heat down on a district heating system back into the village? There's enough heat on a 2 megawatt plant to provide heat to about 300 homes, so it's not insignificant. And decarbonising home heating is one of the biggest challenges when we're looking at hitting carbon zero targets.
So people living in the area will be a little nervous about this. What are you proposing to do to provide reassurance, or at least give them the opportunity to find out more?
Well, obviously we had our initial public consultation, as we mentioned earlier, and obviously on the back of that there were concerns. So the team went out and did an awful lot of work to hopefully allay those, of which one of the things, Phil, when going on that trip to Scotland, one of the members of the local authority actually came with us purely and simply because he walked out round and said, there is no smell. So smell was a big thing. But to assure people again, and that's what we were talking about before, this is not a waste facility. It's nothing to do with waste. It's all about agriculture. And I think a lot of people do get that. You've obviously you're never going to please all the people all of the time, make no bones about it. But I'd like to think we've been as open as possible. We've got really good dialogue with the local authority. And obviously on the back of that, after TT week on I think it's the 10th of June, we're actually having a consultation open day basically at Andreas Parish Hall, where all the proponents that are involved from the team, i.e. the AD operator or potential AD operator, obviously Ed and his solar team, planners, the whole thing will be there to sit down between I think, what time was it, 8 o'clock? Was it 9 o'clock?
10 in the morning.
10, sorry.
Through till 7 in the evening.
They're not farming hours, Phil. So basically, yes, between those eight, it's a drop-in session. Come in, ask what you want to do, find out, and hopefully it will explain the project and hopefully allay some of the fears. Because, as Ed says, there's real potential community benefits in this. And not being rude, we've all seen local authorities equally struggling with rates, etc. Well, this is a fantastic way of the local authority getting a bit more income as well.
And obviously local authorities would be very interested in things like that, because that allows the ratepayers to have potentially a lower rate that they end up paying. So in terms of the technical stuff, I mean, what's complicated about this, Ed?
It's an interesting question, and I could get into some really deep detail on the complexities of moving energy onto networks. I mean, networks basically want to be stable, and you want to maintain a power flow at a consistent level. Big swings up or down cause fuses to blow and lights to go out. So what we're trying to achieve on the site is that level of stability, but also something that's got scalability. So when you look at the PV, you look at the AD, You look at the battery solutions, we're going into planning for something that's quite large, but actually it's designed to be built out in phases. And in particular, if I come back to the AD, listening to the community and concerns about, I think they're really supportive of farmers and the fact that this will provide a significant farm income, but they do worry about moving crops to site, putting it into the clamps, etc., and the amount of potential traffic movements. So what we've done is say, fine, let's look at how this works. Let's take steps. So dropping it from our initial proposal of 10 megawatts by 80% to a 2 megawatt plant gives us that chance to see what's happening. But that's enough for us to get the baseload energy that we need to move forward with our potential customers. As Robert's identified, we've talked to an AD plant. Just in context, a 300 kilowatt demand for an AD plant needs a 3 megawatt solar park. So it's quite sizable because they're running 24/7. So we need that balance of power. Without being too dull, when you come back to the bigger network, it operates in exactly the same way. And, Isle of Man network relies on the UK network. So we're sort of sitting here going, we will try to produce as much power and be as self-sufficient and energy secure as we possibly can. But it's nice to have that umbilical cord in the same way that Isle of Man has an umbilical cord to the UK and to the gas pipe. Difference is we're going to be pretty much 95% secure in our own power, whereas you're kind of the opposite on the grid here, where you're 90% plus reliant on imported power. So having an energy hub that exists to deliver a specific purpose to commercials on our site is very useful, because that little node could provide at times additional support to the main grid.
And Robert, you're a political animal. You will have seen the backlash, particularly at the moment in relation to the offshore wind farm. This is not going to be necessarily an easy ride through planning for your development.
No, it probably won't, because at the end of the day, everybody's got to have their opinion. But from people, the messages I get from the local community and people involved in the community, they're actually really keen. They're actually saying this is a really sensible alternative to everything else that's out there. I think one of the big things that there's not many people who will actually see it, because the airfield by nature sits in a bit of a bowl. And I'm not going to say nobody can see it, because that would be equally wrong. But the amount of people who can see it is very small. Ed and I have been out as much as we can round to talk to those people privately. I accept everybody's got their own opinion, and that's why we live in a democracy. But I think a lot of people, the big concern, the two big concerns, Phil. One obviously is the smell, and then the other one is obviously traffic and traffic movements, because obviously Andreas has a history, remember, of serious traffic movements. When we had the tip down there and the quarry, the sand quarry was going full bore. But what you have to remember with that is that those movements were virtually 365 days a year. It was going ding dong all the time. Any peaks in traffic movements will literally be for agricultural purposes of anyone harvesting any crop. So it's an agricultural thing, if you mean. You'll get real short seasonal spurs. So probably in I would suggest you will have traffic movements for maybe a month, 6 weeks of the year, and the rest of the time there will be just normal movements. That's when those peaks will be, which, at the end of the day, it's farming.
And in terms of government, presumably you've been having extensive conversations with the government, with the MUA, organisations like that.
Yeah, we have. We've got a really good relationship with the MUA, because, going back, let's be real about this, Phil. This is about getting our airfield with enough power to develop, to bring jobs, all those sorts of things. And MU, ideally the first port of call is to MU to say, can we have X amount of power? And they literally, at the moment, we all know the north is pretty fragile on the grid anyway. So, yeah, we're saying, well, what can you give us? Ed's engineers and their engineers are chatting about what they can give us. So the last thing I want to put over that we're in any way in conflict with Manx Utilities, because we're not. They've been really helpful.
And presumably DEFA will, I mean, this to me, obviously I served as an agriculture minister in the past, but this would have been a godsend at the time when we were struggling a little bit to find new solutions for agriculture. And I don't think things have changed that much. In fact, possibly with the current Middle East war and the problems with fertiliser prices, this sounds like this would be something that would be very welcome.
I think in fairness to officers within DEFA, they are. Obviously, 2 officers came with us when we went on that trip. And, they could see, I think I think one of them that's more involved in the energy side of things, I think he had his eyes open. I don't think he realised, I think the comment was when we were away, I didn't realise feeding an animal was so complicated. And that's basically what an AD plant is what they call a concrete cow. And you feed it exactly the same way as you would an animal. And if you feed it wrongly, it gets bellyache, basically. So, again, that's why what we're trying to do is produce high-quality crops of the right order to do the job properly. And
Ed, I mean, in terms then of the project, is there a particular thing that you would hope to start with, or how is it going to develop?
So you're right that we're having technical conversations with MUA at the moment because if you're going to put an energy generating asset onto the edge of the network and we want to bring power in, we've got to get them really comfortable that we're not accidentally going to be leaking power back into the network that they don't expect to see. So what we're doing with them at the moment is developing phase 1A of the project, which will probably be 5 megawatts of solar to begin with. So it was 4.8 megawatts, and that sits on around about 11 acres of land that we're looking at. That first phase will give us an opportunity to get the PV up and running and batteries up and running. The second phase would be to bring the AD plant online. So it's a steady process to demonstrate that our what we use is what they call grid forming inverters, which allows us to run our network inside. And so we want to demonstrate to MEO that we're doing that. So that's the stage. It's staggered. We'd like to think we can get this through planning reasonably quickly because we want to get on with looking at some of the commercial opportunities that will use the power. So we're targeting commencement of construction next spring. From an AD perspective, it takes longer to build an AD plant, so we wouldn't be able to get that up and running probably until 2028. But part of that duration is obviously we've got to give the farmers advance notice to get the crops in the ground, get those out, get them to us. But I think we could certainly be delivering renewable energy to the site at a base load level within the next 24 months with a good wind.
And we're almost out of time. We've 2 or 3 minutes left. Robert, I mean, obviously there's a general election coming up. What would you hope to? Well, what would you say to prospective candidates in relation to this project, and perhaps hope that they might slip into their manifesto?
I think it's bigger, personally, Phil, than someone's manifesto. I think we've got serious problems around the world, haven't we? And I'm a firm believer as an island nation that we look after ourselves as much as we can. And I think, as Ed has inferred right at this, earlier on in the conversation, that we're reliant for so much. And the same with food, isn't it? We're relying on having imported produce so much. And I just don't think it's right. I think let's look after ourselves. And if we can do, as long as it's not causing the local community a load of hassle. If it was a load of hassle, well, I'm not being funny, it wouldn't do for me. I'm not into that either, because you can go and find hassle easy. I'm trying to find a way not to have hassle, if that makes sense. But if everyone can benefit, farmers can benefit, and especially, obviously, as was alluded to, the farmers themselves have formed their own co-op, so they're totally independent of what we're doing. That's their part of the ship. And no, I just think it's really exciting, and it's something, and the other beauty of, it's privately funded. We're not talking about running, looking for government money, because we all know there ain't any.
And I guess, Ed, from what you're saying, if we're ready to, or you're ready to start in the spring, that unlike some some of the projects that are being talked about at the moment around the island. You've got the finance and it's ready to go.
Yeah, we're comfortable that if we can get the project through planning, that we can move into construction. It's in the PV side of things, it's the lowest cost to for renewable energy power generation. So we're pretty excited about it. I think it's a real opportunity, as Robert's saying, for the Isle of Man to demonstrate how it become more energy independent, and how by blending different ideas together you can produce affordable energy and long-term stability and energy security.
So I don't know whether it's a good idea to ask Robert this, or whether Ed would want to tell us when the public meeting is on Wednesday the 10th.
Yeah, so the public consultation is a display consultation to find out more information about the AD, the PV, how the project works, and also the social and economic benefits, the local benefits that we want to get across to people. It will be run between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. on the 10th of June at Andreas Parish Hall. We'll have experts there on specific technologies, so it'd be great to see people come down and find out what's going on. Obviously, public feedback is really important to us. As I highlighted earlier, we've made quite a lot of changes since we met with the community 2 years ago, specifically in response to their concerns, and it'd be great to show them what the project looks like now.
That was Ed Jessamine and Robert Murray. So what do you think? Could this be the renewable energy project that the public will want to get behind? For now, I'm Phil Gaughan, Gora Myos and Gay Sakram. Thanks for listening.